Today, I'm going to try to draw this narrow alleyway in Nafplio, Greece, and specifically through the heart of our neighborhood, which is called Pronia. While I was drawing, a local woman walked past and asked us if we knew much about the area, to which we responded, not really. So, with a smile, she told us about how Capodistrius, who was the first political leader of Greece as we know it today, decided to build something of a refugee settlement. Greece had recently liberated itself from the Ottoman Empire, with some help, of course, and people were flooding into Nafplio, which was the first capital of the new state of Greece. Turns out there weren't enough homes for them, so together with the engineer Vulgaris, as usual, please excuse any butchered pronunciation, they built this neighborhood of small houses. Capodistrius fittingly chose to name it Pronia from the Greek word prono, again, pronunciation, sorry, meaning to provide for. Today, this little neighborhood is a quiet, traditional suburb where you'll find Greeks living their everyday lives outside of the relative hustle and bustle of the old town. We've seen no tourists here, unless we happen to pass our reflection, even though it's only a short walk into town, maybe 5 to 10 minutes. So yeah, a very interesting corner of Nafplio, and one I'm grateful to have had the opportunity to draw. Speaking of, I have very little idea of what I'm doing with this drawing. I started with the areas painted in white for some reason. I truly don't understand why I did that, but quickly moved on to what I see as more of a central feature, which is this little entranceway on the left with the door and the potted plant. I didn't do much here before getting right into the plant because this scene is already pretty dense and I didn't want too much overlap or contrast. I wanted everything to be able to breathe, so I sketched out the bare minimum to suggest the structure of this corner and the door so that the plant could act as the primary feature, which is exactly how I pictured it in the moment, and then I could go back and draw the door behind it. Also, real quick, if you'd like to continue to watch me incrementally improve my drawing skills, go ahead and subscribe. Seeing that number slowly tick up and up really gets my dopamine receptors going, which is probably totally fine and healthy. So let's keep that up. I'd really appreciate it. And if you're new here, hi. I'm traveling the world and learning to draw it, and I think that's a neat concept, so maybe you will too. If so, and you'd like to affect my dopamine, subscribe to the channel as well. Also, make sure to like the video and comment and all that other stuff. Okay, so I've talked a lot about planes recently, and not the flying machines, but like the flat surfaces facing every which way. And this has many, as you can see. It's not a building straight on, it's not a corner with two sides, but it's this wonky little hallway of weird shapes and angles, all aligning to create a variety of different planes. The key to figuring out how to draw these planes is perspective. It's always perspective. Everything is perspective, it would seem. So I figured it might be illuminating for me to talk about how I went about drawing it, or maybe how I should have. I guess we'll see as I talk, which begins now. First, I try to find the things that face me directly, at least approximately. So here, I have the door. I have the door. That's it. Even that is sort of at an angle, pointing to the left, but it's as close as I'm gonna get. With that door, or more accurately, the plane that it's a part of, I find my eye line. So for me, it was somewhere around the spot above the door where the paint changes color. If I think of that line cutting across the frame, I might find that all of the things on that line are level with it. They should be, at least. So actually, conveniently, you can see how that line matches up quite nicely with the red roof in the background to its right, and the top of the shutters on the window even further to the right. If I stay on this right side and go up from there, the top of the window frame itself angles down, and if we go even higher, the overhanging bit of this wall angles down even more. So it's those things that I'm looking out for when I first start. And while that is super helpful and informative for me, it's not always practical to constantly have to remind myself of all of it. So what I'll often do is think about it like this. If it's above my eye line and moving away from me in space, it will point downward. And if it's below my eye line and moving away from me in space, it's moving upward. With that, I've also started holding up my pen in the air, aligning it with whatever line I'm ready to draw. And that way I have a concrete, physical way of understanding the angles rather than just a conceptual one. That has helped me a lot when I just want to double check, because even with all that stuff I just said, it can still be extremely confusing in the moment. And in 3D space, it can be difficult to discern whether something is moving away from me or toward me. Anyway, so with that stuff figured out, I pretty much build the plane without actually having to consider it. Instead, I focus on the lines that contain the plane, and as I go, I just need to ensure I keep tabs on its orientation, because that will inform any further development along the way. So for example, if I'm drawing a brick wall, I'll need to make the bricks above my eye line angle differently to those below it. And that all depends on the angle of the plane itself, which, as I've said, relies on the combination of that eye line and the height of the wall. And I say height because regardless of the width, those horizontal lines will stay the same as long as the wall doesn't, like curve around or angle or anything like that. Hopefully that makes sense. This is by no means an educational channel, which I've said before, but I figured it might be helpful nonetheless to, tell you how I'm trying to manage these types of things. Super. So I know this one was pretty specific, but I don't always have the chance to dig deep into just one topic. And I think this reference was a pretty good example of what I wanted to talk about. Having said all that, the area in which this shines brightest, I think, is in its perspective. I think I handled all of those planes pretty well, and I'm really proud of that. Some of the details got a little lost. I had some trouble demarcating one region of the scene from another, but if you look hard enough, I think you can still tell what's going on. Color would have helped this really come to life, but regardless, I'm feeling good about it. And I'd love to know what you think about it, so let me know in the comments, and make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel and all of that good stuff. I appreciate you for taking the time to watch this one, and I'll see you on Monday. Thanks.